Yeah, I did change, and I'm really glad I changed.
This one's wife. The Sussexes are at the head of one of the biggest trolling gangs of the internet age. Part 1. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. My work conveys many benefits. 2 of the greatest are as follows. The first, the knowledge that enables you to achieve freedom in relation to narcissists that you have experienced personally, whether you've been ensnared romantically, confused as a consequence of familial ensnarement, bemused by the behaviour of a bad neighbour, or perhaps plagued by a boss narcissist. And secondly, it enables you to begin to understand why certain people in the world act as they do, why they behave as they have, why they've made the decisions that would often leave people scratching their heads. Only recently, I was listening to a podcast that related to money, and in a certain section, the narrator was talking about how there was much confusion about why certain people behaved as they did, whereby they made certain financial decisions which resulted in them losing their fortunes. Of course, what he failed to appreciate was that in many instances, those individuals weren't actually driven by the money per se, but the fact that it enabled them to assert control over people. They could utilise it to receive fuel from masses of people, and therefore the pursuit of money, more money than anybody would deem necessary, wasn't driven by notions of just simple greed, but there was something else behind that. And of course, if the author of that particular piece had an awareness and understanding of narcissism, that would help that particular person unravel the mystery as to why certain people seem to throw away their fortunes. I speak extensively about narcissism and psychopathy, and that includes this one's wife. And in this 2-part series of videos, I'm utilising some observations that have been provided by Dan Wooten, because this is instrumental in helping you understand more about narcissism and also the interrelationship between the way that the narcissist utilises the coterie to cause problems for other people. I'm quoting from something that Mr. Wooten has written, and it was published just recently by him, and I will pause intermittently to provide my own observations, but it is the foundation, using what he's explaining, that helps you understand more about naturally what has been going on vis-a-vis the Sussex Squad and their increasing exposure, but also how this all interacts with the behaviour of a narcissist. Mr. Wooten writes, "Time and again Prince Harry and this one's wife have presented themselves as guardian angels attempting to drive hate off the World Wide Web." Pausing there, as you know, in relation to this one's wife, that is facade management. That she adopts this holier-than-thou approach, believing herself to be whiter than white, that she is the hard-done-to victim. Her narcissism identifies the criticism of her as attacks, as hatred. It takes what is criticism and warps it into a belief that it is a hate, that it is a racist slur. As I've explained before, in some instances there are racist slurs that have been directed against her, but they are very much in the minority. Much of what she deems to be hate, much of what she categorises as hate speech, is actually criticism of her. But it is not the case that she sits there and thinks to herself, I know they're being critical, I'll call it hate anyway, because that sounds better. She truly believes that it is racist hatred of her, because that's what her narcissism shapes it as that criticism travels through the distortion field that surrounds her. Thus, that criticism offends her need for control. Her narcissism wraps it up as hatred to motivate her to try and nullify the threat to control by creating these campaigns and endeavours to drive what she says is hate of the World Wide Web, when in actual fact what she's really doing is asserting control and trying to silence anybody that dare criticise her, whether it's legitimate or not. She is not interested in the legitimacy of it all. All it does is basically pass this test. Does it threaten her need for control? Yes, therefore it must be stopped. Mr. Wooten continues, the exiled Duke and Duchess of Sussex used various media and public platforms to bemoan internet trolling, assertion of control, suggesting it has taken a significant toll on their mental health, victim mentality, pity play, with this one's wife even claiming the negative reaction she received was almost unsurvivable during one unsuccessful bid to garner sympathy. Once again, another pity play. Harry, who I am told has several anonymous accounts to regularly patrol X and other websites he claims to despise, has even taken on a role on the Commission of Information Disorder for the globalist organisation the Aspen Institute. Pausing there, Harry acts as a lieutenant for this one's wife, adopting the role of attack dog. His emotional empathy for his wife, who he wishes to protect, becomes warped by the continued message that they are the victims, and therefore he becomes obsessed with patrolling X and other websites for the purposes of finding fault. Mr. Wooten continues, so what if I told you this entire act is one big mirage? Well, it wouldn't be a surprise at all, Mr. Wooten, as this one's wife, being a narcissist, whatever she creates is an illusion around her. He continues, a publicity stunt at best, because Harry and this one's wife are actually at the forefront of one of the biggest internet trolling gangs of the internet age. A gang unofficially led by a man who they consider a professional ally and friend called Christopher Boozy, who was being paid for research by this one's wife and was then famously platformed in their high-profile Netflix reality show. Boozy finds himself also in the position of a lieutenant, motivated by payment, and is also his own need for control. He's motivated to be an attack dog on behalf of the Sussexes. This one's wife, remember, is in essence a cowardly mid-range narcissist. She'll be very nasty to people behind closed doors. She'll be nasty about people behind their backs. But in a one-to-one, she will shrivel with an appropriately well-engaged, well-educated, well-informed individual. On a public platform, she would be taken apart by anybody with forensic ability with regard to questioning her and also the presentation of evidence. And this is why she will never submit to such an interview that would ask the real questions that people want answering. She wishes to maintain this facade of being an entirely pleasant and kind and empathic person, and therefore others must do the dirty work, which is where Christopher Boozy comes in. As a paid lieutenant, he's utilised to put forward a position that suggests that this one's wife is a victim. You may recall from a couple of years ago his report that a child could have written, which wouldn't have stood up to any kind of forensic examination, which basically detailed that there were a small number of single-purpose hate accounts that were repeatedly trolling this one's wife. The whole basis of that report meant that it was really worth nothing. And yet, he has been utilised to create that report, to create the victim image, and to repeatedly speak out on behalf of this one's wife, both on the programme and also, of course, regularly on X and other social media. Not only is he utilised as a lieutenant for the purpose of supporting this one's wife, but he continues to demonstrate how ridiculous he is by attacking Prince William and the Princess of Wales. Mr. Wooten continues by explaining, a gang that I can pinpoint directly to starting horrendous rumours about the whereabouts of Catherine, the Princess of Wales, that spread around the world when in fact she had just received a devastating cancer diagnosis. A gang that has spent years spreading untrue information about Prince William's sexual preferences, often using bot farms and the dark arts of the internet to amplify damaging rumours. This is the use of the coterie, and a gang who proudly brand themselves as the Sussex Squad, which Harry and this one's wife have never once publicly or privately condemned. Pausing there, we know, of course, why there is no condemnation of them, because they're effectively doing the dirty work of this one's wife, supporting her, which gives her positive fuel, attacking those which she deems to be her enemies. Even though, of course, this demonstrates what a hypocrite she is, that she complains about people attacking her online, but then does nothing to rein in those that support her who attack other people online. Once again demonstrating not only the hypocritical nature of who she is, but her absence of emotional empathy and the collateral consequences of her narcissism. It utilises the Sussex Squad for the purposes of ensuring that she gains fuel from them and utilising them as members of the coterie to attack other people, but then there is the collateral consequence of it exposing her as a hypocrite. Mr. Wooten continues, both Boozy and his army of trolls like to present themselves as do-gooders, facade management, trying to shut down bad behaviour on the internet, when in fact my extensive research and investigation has shown they are the ones perpetuating the worst trolling, at times threatening the lives and livelihoods of folk who have simply exercised their right to free speech by criticising the public behaviour of Harry or this one's wife. My interest in uncovering the truth about this malignant squad is intense, in part because for the past year these online thugs have attempted to destroy my reputation by working with a handful of nefarious forces to spread total lies about me and my completely innocent partner, who has no role in public life. As their behaviour unravels after overplaying their hand during Kate Gate, today Mr. Wooten makes an unequivocal demand to Harry and this one's wife: publicly disassociate yourselves with the increasingly dangerous and deranged behaviour of the Sussex Squad, or anything you ever say again about the cruelty of the internet is worthless. While Harry and this one's wife will claim they have nothing to do with the Sussex Squad, it's clear that they have close connections between them as former royals, their PR mouthpieces, Omid Scobie and Boozy, and there are three main leaders of the trolls. Mr. Wooten explains that he had been aware of the Sussex Squad for years, because they had regularly targeted him after he broke a number of seismic stories about Prince Harry and his wife during their decision to Megxit in January 2020. Many of the bigger Sussex Squad accounts would parrot briefings received by this one's wife's former LA PR agency, Sunshine Sachs, which is famous for using unconventional methods online to protect their clients. But it was only last May when I discovered just how far this group would go to take down enemies of their heroes. So what we have here is what is actually quite typical in relation to a narcissist. The narcissist will have certain lieutenants, the higher ranking individuals, which can sometimes include an intimate partner primary source such as Harry. It includes the likes of Omid Scobie, it includes the likes of Christopher Boozy, and there are others also within the fuel matrix of this one's wife, who are motivated by either the narrative that's put forward by the narcissist of, I'm the victim here, I'm the person that's being abused, please protect me, alongside, in other instances, wanting to gain fame themselves, being paid to do what they do, to enable them to assert control of themselves. Furthermore, you have the coterie members. Now, for this one's wife, she has a fairly large coterie. The Sussex Squad fit within the coterie because they believe, without question, what she says and does, and that any criticism of her is also interpreted by them as an attack upon this one's wife, and thus they then go on the offensive. They do not exhibit any form of critical thought, any evaluation of the evidence. Most narcissists will have lieutenants and coterie members, but not on the scale of this one's wife. Other narcissists may just have 1 or 2 or 3 lieutenants, and they are not necessarily high profile, particularly amongst many of the narcissists which are lesser and mid-range. Coterie members tend to be some friends, family members, maybe some colleagues, usually numbering no more than 10 or 15 individuals who have fallen for the facade or are just generally loyal because they've been friends for a long time, or it's a family member, blood's thicker than water, etc. And as a consequence of all of this, they believe the narcissist or are unlikely to want to do anything against the narcissist. When it comes to this one's wife, her coterie is much larger, talking thousands of individuals that show support for her online and are active with their pursuit of the defence of her and going on the offensive against other individuals they deem to be problematic. And then, of course, there are the lieutenants. Mr. Wooten, like others, has fallen foul of these lieutenants and members of the coterie, something we will be learning more about shortly. But it is instructive as a consequence of his observations about the connection between this one's wife and the Sussex Squad, by describing them as being at the forefront of the largest, or one of the largest, trolling gangs on the internet, that demonstrates the reason this exists is because of her narcissism. Because of this one's wife's inherent and entrenched need for control, but also because of the way that she manages a facade. She needs other people to do her dirty work. She needs those lieutenants, she needs those members of the coterie, not only to provide her with support and fuel, but also, in effect, to go after her enemies, acting like a hit squad. We'll learn more about this connection and also the manner of their behaviours in part 2. Join me there.